Ben.
He was on.
Peter can't make it tonight.
Okay. Thank you. All right, good evening, and welcome to the Wenham Select Board for July 7th. It is 6:30, and we will get started. First on the agenda is just our call to order, and we'll start to my right.
Benjamin Timon.
Finsberg.
Barry Cheeseman.
And Deirdre Perotti. Peter Clay will not be with us this evening. And we will go to public comment. If anyone would like to make public comment on an item that is not on the agenda this evening, you are welcome to come to the podium or raise your hand on Zoom.
No hands on Zoom.
No hands? Okay. So next up, we have Steve with the Town Administrator's Report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple quick updates tonight. Firstly is a trash update. So as most are aware now, the Town of Wenham is entering a new trash contract that was effective July 1 of this year with Casella Waste Management. There is a change in the recycling, the way the recycling is going to be collected. It's going to an automated process where the truck will pick up the recycling and dump it. Because of that, there is now a required use of what have been distributed in the majority, a 96-gallon tote that all the recycling has to fit in. If you feel like you need additional capacity, there's the option to purchase an additional tote of 96 gallons. If you feel the 96 gallons is too large, there's an option to reduce the size to, I believe, 64-gallon tote. So again, that is planned. Those changes are expected to go live, and to plan on them going live on Monday, July 13th. Casella is finishing up the distribution of the 96-gallon totes through the end of this week. Although if you do not have one, or you have any outstanding logistical concerns or problems with your tote, don't worry. They've assured us that if you can continue just putting out your recycling as you have done in the past, it will continue to get picked up as we kind of work through the transitional phase. But the plan is to go live on that July 13th date. Payments for additional totes will be made through the town clerk, similar to other DPW related fees. And Rich Souza and Sheila will work with Casella to get that tote dropped off directly to your house. And similarly with if you would like to downgrade or downsize your 96-gallon tote to a smaller one, that can be done free of charge. Just alert Sheila and Rich. We have a web page set up with all the contact information, all the Q&As. But, obviously you can reach out to the Select Board's office. DPW generic web page landing has all the contacts, but reach out to Sheila and Rich and they will coordinate. We have about 50 smaller units ready to go, and they will come swap it out at your house for you, no charge. So just as an update to the Select Board, right now we have roughly 15 requests for larger, so an additional 96-gallon tote, and about 16 requests for to trade in their 96-gallon tote for a smaller tote. So it's about even as of right now. There was a lot of calls today, not really many complaints or additional requests, just confirming that the postcard is accurate and kind of what's going on. So Sheila was pretty busy today. We actually ended up having to direct her phone into Michelle to assist with the call volume. So certainly folks are aware, just being transparent and telling everybody what's going on. Route 1A, so the traffic project here out front. So what the Select Board had just in its last meeting, or 2 meetings ago, voted to authorize the the takings of the temporary construction easements along Route 1A on the publicly, the Wenham public streets that intercept with the Route 1A and the state right-of-way. With that authorization, the state and our legal counsel were able to work towards finalizing the schematic plans, and that is almost complete. So we're expected before you meet again, the Mylars will be completed and submitted to the Registry of Deeds, and that step will be finalized. And the state still feels that they are on track to for a fall time advertising of the bid package. There's an economic bill that is being run through by the state by Maura Healy's office. It is expected that the House will vote on it tomorrow night, Wednesday. It's about $305 million borrowing. I worked with Senator Tarr's office and also Sally Kern's office today to submit that we have both our economic development study done that we have teed up, and also our downtown revitalization study, both funded in this to try to get an allotment. It's not guaranteed, but it never hurts to ask. So, and that is, another good news, we got our draft audit from our new auditors. Again, this is late in the cycle. We wouldn't typically get it basically a year after the year was closed, so it's been an entire year for the last, so this would be fiscal year 25 close, but it was a new auditor. We're significantly behind when CBiz or Clifton Larson was bought out by CBiz. It's kind of really put us behind the 8 ball in the queue, but we have that. Kudos to Ernie and the finance team. It's been a pretty heavy lift for them to get that out while closing the books and working through. They've actually already completed pretty much all our testing for the 26 audit, and we're just getting the 25 now. So that's good news. Per the policy, we will review it, send it to FinCom. FinCom will report back to the select board any concerns. And those are the only updates I have tonight.
Great. That was a lot. I do not have updates tonight. I took time off for the holidays. Hope everyone else did too and enjoyed a happy 4th of July. Does anyone else have?
I don't, no.
Nope, just happy for the rain.
It is good news for the rain, yes. Good. Glad we all took some time off for the 4th. Okay, next we have Superintendent Tracy, who is present on Zoom. Thank you, Eric, for being here this evening, who's going to present an overview of the recently released draft master plan for the school district.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to present this. We are still working on it, just so people are aware. This is a draft. We hope to be wrapping up by the end of the summer. But initially, I want to thank the 29 people of the committee, which included parents, teachers, community members, that worked together to ensure the direction that we took with our new strategic plan shared the values of both Hamilton and Wenham. We really worked hard to tie it all to our portrait of a learner, which, if you pay attention over the next year, you'll see will become a very important variable within our school district as related to the changes the state are making with graduation requirements. And then we also align with our core values in a mission-driven way, where we look towards passion for learning, belonging, inclusivity, curiosity, partnerships, and integrity throughout the document, so that we have the ability to all keep everything within the district aligned.
Eric?
The strategic plan itself is broken up into 4 focus areas.
Eric, can you hear me?
Yep.
Sorry, can you hold for one moment? We're having sound issues.
Yeah, how's the sound, Eric? I got your text. Is the sound better now? We're trying to work.
Still staticky, very staticky on this.
And does he have any visuals that he's trying to put up?
There you go, whoever that is.
Is that better?
Can you hear?
Cut it.
All right, and do you have any I was just wondering if you had any, if you wanted us to put the draft report on the screen, or if you have any visuals for us to follow along with here.
No, I just put together some talking points and how much time we had.
Okay, thank you.
But I can send the final document once it's complete to both towns. So the strategic plan itself is broken up into four focus areas over a 5-year period. So we just finished our first strategic plan, which was only a 3-year plan because we were trying to get our footing under us. This one is a 5-year plan, which includes 4 focus areas, including facilities operations, long-term planning, communication and stakeholder engagement, academic excellence for all students, and future-ready digital infrastructure and learning. Within each of those focused areas, there are a number of strategic initiatives that will drive this plan through the 5-year process. One of the things I think was important for the group that worked on this was we wanted to look beyond 5 years. So we have included some language to really push this out to as far as 2050. Within our first focus area, facilities, operations, and long-term planning, we're looking at transparent, long-range financial facilities planning that extends out to 2035 and possibly to 2050 to ensure our buildings are safe, healthy, and ADA compliant. We're looking for sustainable capital improvement funding to develop a plan over the 5 years that works within the bounds of each of the towns. And then we're looking at developing some operational efficiencies, including staff and analysis to eliminate redundancies and then ensure that our resources are optimized to meet the needs of all of our students. Under the second area, communication and stakeholder engagement, this two-way transparency was a big thing for our committee. We have committed to ensuring town officials and residents are informed and heard through consistent, accessible messaging regarding budget cycles and capital projects. We also want to open up opportunities for people to learn more about the school district budget and the process through the school district budget. So we're looking at hosting some workshops for people within the community. We're looking at developing our schools into connected community hubs, which we would share resources, and then expand our reach through digital outreach so that residents feel invested in our schools and the success of our schools. And then working towards real-world connections. We have learned since we've come out of COVID that our kids really need to make connections with the real world to help them make that decision of the direction they want to take, not only after they leave high school, but after they leave college. So developing a stronger internship program and building an internship library, working with our local residents as businesses to develop opportunities for kids. Our third focus area is really about academic excellence for all students. We're looking at opportunities for high quality instruction for every single student in our buildings, consistently using data to inform our instructional practices across all of our grade levels, continuing to close our achievement gaps, really continuing to work on our multi-tiered systems of support, where for the last 4 years, we have built this support system that has helped us to narrow achievement gaps for high needs subgroups. We want to continue to do that at a rate of approximately 5% per year. And then personalizing pathways, helping kids to create their own pathway beyond high school, no matter what they choose to do after high school. And that's again, something you'll see that comes from the state and the newly released state graduation requirements. And then the fourth and final focus area, it's really future-ready digital infrastructure and learning. There's a lot about sustaining technology and trying to keep up with technology. One of the things we realize as a group is it's impossible for school districts, especially public schools, to really, truly keep up with technology, especially AI and the speed that it's moving. So we're looking at being sustainable, keeping our multi-year capital plan public and out in front so that our digital infrastructure remains robust and reliable for the district. We really want to build an AI strategy and develop ethics along the way. During this past spring, we had a group working on establishing an AI policy and some direction for the district for AI through all grades, and this will ensure that our students can maintain traditional school skills while gaining the competencies needed for an AI-driven economy. And then the final thing would be digital literacy and implementing a K-12 technology instruction sequence. Believe it or not, we don't have this in every grade level, but we think it's important given the drive that technology is making now globally, so that our kids can demonstrate proficiency, be ethical about it, and then understand the realities of using technology. So that's really in a nutshell what our plan entails, and certainly available to answer any questions if people have them.
Great, thank you, Eric. Questions, Finn?
Sure, I have a question. Eric, as I was reading through the document, it really sounded like a plan for a plan. This was a kind of establishing a framework with more details to come and a lot of decisions that are really important, potentially expensive decisions to come. I was wondering if you could go into a little bit of detail about when some of these decisions are going to be coming down the pike, especially when it comes to, say, facilities. Right, and when we can expect to hear more about those decisions.
Sure, the facilities project and process has been ongoing, as you know. We've taken a new turn and worked towards developing an RFP that we're going to, as soon as I have the opportunity, get information out to the Hamilton and Wenham communities to get some feedback on the request. We want to look at it as a multi-tier request for funding and for development of our fiscal plans for our facilities. And it'll initially be, step one will be, okay, the communities agree to do some basic repairs. Or step two, the community agrees to do some basic repairs and bring the buildings up to ADA compliance. Step three, that might add renovation or rebuilding some of the infrastructure like HVAC, electrical, plumbing. Step four would really be looking at trying to develop a plan for either a remodel or addition where needed. So we're going to put that out to the community, and that still needs some time and probably a town meeting vote. So I would say we're about 18 months out from really coming to the towns with any type of numbers that are realistic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gary, good. Ben?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Superintendent Tracy. I don't really have a question, but more of a comment, just to commend you on the AI strategy objectives that you have. I don't envy you or anybody in public education trying to figure out how to, on the one hand, maintain a program that builds excellent writing skills, problem solving, critical thinking amongst students that are in their formative years, developing that, and yet being able to harness, the benefits of some of the AI programming to use in the real world and even, to enhance their academic performance as well. So it seems like a really, really difficult challenge that obviously is being faced across all sectors of society. It's kind of like building the airplane while it's in flight, too, with the way technology is moving. So I only wanted to mention that. I was glad to see that that's in there, and I would just encourage you and the other leaders in the school department who are going to be a part of that to, to really, as I'm sure you're planning to do, really tap into the most cutting edge research and expertise that is out there, which I'm sure there's a lot of it specifically targeted to middle and secondary school education in particular. But I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, thank you. You make a good point. The AI piece is, one of the things that all schools are wrestling with, and I think it's important that we have decided, we're not going to ban it outright. It's always our job to teach kids about some of the new and upcoming things, how to use them appropriately with integrity, and how to also look for issues that could be dangerous. So I think that's a good development that we've been able to grow out of. There was a separate committee that met all during spring to develop our AI guidelines. That will lead us into some grade level guideline development for the beginning of the school year. And then we're going to pilot some classrooms to see where and how things are used currently, and then really push hard on the more important piece. helping our teachers to learn and to understand and use AI in various ways, not only to support them as educators, but also to grow and expand their classrooms and the opportunities within their classrooms.
Great, thank you, Eric. I agree, we're grappling with it at the college level too, same issues, sounds very familiar.
Everywhere.
Brave new world. All right, any other questions for Eric? All right, thank you, Eric, very much for being here. We appreciate the update. We'll
Yeah,
see
thank you for the
soon.
opportunity. We appreciate it.
All right, have a good night.
Thank you, you too.
Okay, on the consent agenda this evening, we have some additional board and committee appointments, Iron Rail Commission, Climate Action, and Fire and Police. And we have an exemption request for Bonnie Anderson. Are there any issues, questions on the consent agenda? Okay, then I'll take a motion.
So I move to approve items A and B as printed in this evening's consent agenda.
Gary seconds.
All right, we'll move to vote. Ben?
Ben, aye.
Finn?
Finn, aye.
Gary?
Aye.
And Deirdre, aye. Okay, consent agenda passes. Next, we will,
Should say thank you to all the volunteers,
yes, thank you, Gary.
as well
Yes,
as our
and we're-
new fire department personnel.
Yes, Gary is correct. Thank you to all the volunteers, and we will be discussing the remaining vacancies later. I'm actually delighted at how few vacancies we have remaining, so this is great news. And again, some new people joining boards and committees. It's a great thing to see. Okay. With that, for the regular business, we'll start with A, which is to review and discuss a letter that we received from the Boulders Condominium Trust dated June 29th, 2026, regarding the Open Space and Recreation Committee's initial draft ideas for redevelopment of the tennis courts at Pingree Park. So we did receive a letter with supporting materials from the trust, with also a request that it be entered into the public record and placed on a select board agenda, so we're happy to do that this evening and to allow some time for comment. So that's what we will go to next. Is someone, okay, great. Come to the mic, please, and just identify yourself for the record.
Bob Frischella, 13 Wallace Drive.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm representing the Boulders Condominium Trust. I'm the chairman of the Board of Trustees, and we have several of our members in attendance, owners and residents in attendance. The Boulders Condominium Trust represents the interests of 40 residents and owners that make up our community. Thank you for the opportunity to present the Boulders' view of the ongoing planning for the redevelopment in the Pingree Park courts. We all agree that something needs to be done there. The courts are dilapidated and could be put to much better use. We also would like to make note of the attachments that we made to the letter, which provide examples of the types of issues such as noise, health, and other impacts that have been documented locally and across the country. If you're not familiar with the Boulders, we are a 55-plus age-restricted community immediately adjacent to Pingree Park and the Dodge Tree Farm Conservation Area. First, we'd like to commend the Open Space and Recreation Committee for its creativity in developing a list of options for the dilapidated tennis courts immediately adjacent to our property. Thank you. You've done an excellent job of creating alternatives for consideration. We are particularly concerned, however, about the noise impacts from two of the options under consideration by the Open Space and Recreation Committee, that being pickleball and a skate park. For context, the existing courts are located less than 100 feet away from our nearest resident. I can pass copies of this around afterwards. It should be noted that this distance is vastly out of compliance with standards for pickleball courts developed by Weston and Sampson consultants for the town of Wellesley and the recommended national standards developed by the American Planning Association. The recommended pickleball court setback distance of 350 feet from adjoining property lines is more than 3.5 times the distance from the Boulders property line to the existing courts. 3 years ago, the Hamilton Wenham Recreation Department installed pickleball courts on the existing tennis courts on a trial basis. We expressed our concern about noise at that time, and we were given assurances that certain restrictions will be in place to mitigate or reduce the noise impacts. These restrictions included no pickleball on weekends, with nets to be locked up, and hours restricted from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., which now have been extended to 7 p.m. Since that time, however, there has been little or no enforcement of these restrictions. Nets are not removed during restricted hours, and play continues on weekends and after hours. We had asked to be part of the process at that time to review HW recommendations existing use during the trial period, but no one has reached out to the Boulders to assess the impacts from the trial or involved us in the process. The impacts from pickleball noise that we are experiencing are real, and they affect our quality of life and our ability to enjoy the peaceful use of our homes. The noise travels and sound can be heard inside as well as outside of our residences. The Boulders values its close proximity to Pingree Park and considers the park to be a resource to the entire town. We as seniors embrace the idea of having recreation and open space within walking distance of our community. However, we believe that the skate park and pickleball options have inherent fatal flaws and should be eliminated from consideration due to their unacceptable impacts on adjacent neighbors. So with that in mind, we hereby respectfully request that the Wenham Select Board consider instructing the Hamilton Wenham Recreation Park to end the trial period, remove the existing pickleball nets, and prohibit pickleball at the existing Pingree Park tennis courts. Secondly, we would also like to request that the Select Board instruct the Open Space and Recreation Committee to eliminate pickleball and a skate park and other high noise generating concepts from the development of the renovated park. And third, as abutters, the Boulders request that our residents have a meaningful opportunity to participate in the development of alternatives for reuse of the tennis courts. Thank you for allowing us to present our views on the current options for reuse of the tennis courts. We look forward to working with you in developing reasonable alternatives that will serve our entire community. Thank you.
Thank you. And as Mr. Frischella mentioned, in the Select Board packet for this evening is the letter that we received as well as a number of attachments. So anyone who is interested in reading all of the information, it is there posted on the website in the packet for this evening. Okay?
Can I request that my discussion be entered into the record of the meeting as well?
Yes, it will be part of the minutes, and of course on the recording that will be posted publicly. All right, thank you very much. We appreciate the comments and the engagement. Would anyone else like to add anything? Okay, just to be clear, there is no vote this evening on the agenda, so we will take the comments under advisement. I imagine that there will be a process going forward to think through the uses in cooperation, of course, with the Open Space Committee, as this is within their purview. As we think about, as you said, excuse me, what to do with these dilapidated tennis courts. Are there any questions, comments from the board at
Not
this
here.
time?
No,
I had maybe a couple questions for either Ernest or Kate. Where there are pickleball courts presently at the Tea House and at West Wenham Park, is that right? Or you can just bring me up to speed on that.
Hi, thank you.
Hi.
Kate Mallory, Land Use Director. Yes, and then also at the high school, 8 more courts were created for pickleball. So there's 4 tennis courts, and they're lined with 8 pickleball courts.
Okay. As part of the new, the high
new
school
Hamilton
fields.
Wenham High
I
School,
see,
yes.
okay. And as far as like, and I know that we've had these conversations and we've had some excellent presentations from the rec committee on these plans. What would you say is the sort of the best case to be made? The best case to be made on sort of the constituencies within the town who would want pickleball or skate parks. In other words, we have clear information from the residents of the Boulders about how they believe this will impact them and the harm that they believe that, you know, would continue from pickleball and if the skateboard park was put in. And so I'm just sort of wanted maybe a refresher on where we think the demand on the other side may or may not be. Is it hypothetical? Is it specific requests on the part of citizens of the town that, you know, we'd like a skateboard park for our, you know, for our kids, and the same with pickleball. So just trying to kind of get a sense of the other side, so that we can take all that information on board when we are trying to balance these interests.
Yep. So it depends on who you ask. If you talk to the recreation department, those courts are very important for their pickleball activities. So they do have a large demand right now of people playing pickleball. So they would be important for that. When we did a survey, we did kind of a preliminary survey, and there was a lot of interest of keeping the tennis courts and the pickleball courts. I'll say going back now, we need to probably do another community survey because our survey was not very specific. We've come so far since that beginning stage. So I wouldn't really trust it as much as looking at the different options we've been looking at since. For the skate park, this is a smaller group in town that for a few years has been trying to get a skate park in town. So it's a very passionate group. They've been coming to all of our meetings. They're willing to fundraise to try to support doing a skate park. They tried to get a skate park at West Wenham Park. Topography-wise, that didn't fit there. That's why we did the pump track. I don't know of any other space in town where we could do a skate park. So if we kind of say no to this, we more than likely won't have a skate park. So it really depends on what group. We really try to bring Sean Timmons, the recreation director, in to most of our meetings and update us on anything that's happening on his side with the recreation. But I do know that he has mentioned that if pickleball is taken away from that area, it's going to be harder to have as many courses that is being demanded in town.
Thank you.
You're
Appreciate that information.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you, Kate.
Yeah.
Gary?
Yes, I think if we look back to the request for the skate park is a long-standing request. I believe B.J. Brown came in 2 or 3 years ago.
Initially, yes.
And presented to the board as well.
Yes.
So there's some history there that we could look at again.
Yes, and I do have to say they come to most of our meetings as well. They've been very engaged.
Oh, so they are still engaged?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, for years.
Yeah, that's been, I think, even longer since COVID, I believe.
I was wondering, you were saying earlier in the meeting that you're going to have a list of open committee positions, and I was wondering if there are any open rec committee positions.
We're full now. We did have one open space and we just got it filled. Bianca Hansen.
There's a hand up? Okay. Okay, let me just finish questions from the board, comments? Okay.
Just want to make sure
Go
I'm
ahead.
clear. It's my understanding from the last meeting that we're in an information gathering stage right now.
Correct.
We're expecting that, this will kind of culminate with probably the beginning of the school year, the end of the summer, that there'll be surveys and collection of information and interest. And, if there's a whole lot of demand for pickleball, we'll hear about it and try to figure out if there's any way to mitigate any of these concerns that we have in order to, balance the needs. So if
Correct.
there's anything else about that schedule that is important, I'd love to hear about it.
Yes, and we're also planning a community event on a Saturday in September. We haven't picked the date yet. What I'll do is send out notices to abutters within 800 feet of the park, and we'll put an article in the Hamilton Wenham News. We'll put it on the flashboard up on our socials to try to get as many community members as we can. We're going to work the time around the sports schedules for the fall and try to get as many community members in and get their thoughts, and we'll also have a more comprehensive survey.
Great, thank you.
Right, so just to echo that, we're not here this evening to rule anything in or out, but there is still a process to go through to collect comments from the community. We have yours, and you will have more opportunities to bring these comments forward also as we go into sort of the public information and community comment gathering that Kate's talking about. What I would like to ask, though, specifically out of this evening, if there's no objections from the board, is, Steve, if you could connect with Sean Timmons and ask about the enforcement of the parameters that we put in place, because I do think that's something that should be addressed expeditiously if the nets are not being taken away and so forth, and the play is outside the hours that the select board set previously. That needs to be taken care of.
I agree.
Agreed? Okay. All right, Joe, someone on Zoom would like to comment?
Matt Smith, if you wish to speak, you can now.
Oh, sorry, I just accidentally raised my hand.
Okay.
No comment.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. Any other comments? All right. Thank you all for coming. We appreciate the input and for coming in person. It's always nice to see people live and in person. And we'll be seeing more of you. As I said, this will be an open process. We'll spend some quality time together.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. I'll give everyone a moment. Okay, next we have item B, discussion and review of our current required vendor insurance levels. Our current standard liability level used by the town is problematic for small vendors operating under small contract amounts where the insurance premiums can exceed the contract cost. We'll discuss potentially establishing a lower threshold for certain smaller contracts. Steve, are you presenting?
Yeah, so me and Margaret and I. Just a quick overview of what's going on. This is shown up a number of times, at least since I've been here, about four and a half years. So we have a certain level of standard liability that the town covers itself for, and Maya's policy is to always recommend that the vendors mirror the town's liability policy. Similarly, our legal consult doesn't comment on liability amounts, and the reason for that is because I think likely that if you said, you don't need that much, and something happens, maybe you should have had that much. But the problem we run into is particularly very small contracts that don't lend themselves to have a very high liability exposure, such as, one of the ones you're probably most familiar with is when we had the town logo designed. That was $3,500? $4,500 contract. So the cost for a small sole proprietor to match our insurance amounts exceeds, their premium would exceed the gross total revenue they'd receive off the contract. So Margaret, and you can come up and add some more color, but another one that's kind of front and center right now, there's been a few more in the past, but one that's front and center right now is with the 2A Dexter Lane, which is the recent acquisition and refurbishing of an affordable housing unit. Is that now that we own it and we want to rent it out, there's a very strict lottery policy that you have to follow, state law, to find a suitable renter to inhabit this property. So Margaret has done her due diligence and gone out to the market and got some quotes, and they've really ranged from, was it 5,000 to 30,000? And the companies that are big enough to have our insurance as standard was about $30,000, and similarly the small ones, which are we believe to be appropriate in this situation and suitable and have the experience to run a successful lottery, of about $5,000. So, and then Margaret has gone out to her colleagues in the planning world and small businesses and asked, like, how are other communities and businesses handling this? And the general consensus is that they reduce their, they said that ours was extraordinarily high, but in either case, that they have a reduced insurance amount. A couple folks voiced in a reduced insurance amount that's itemized up there for you. And we're not asking for a vote tonight. We can just gather more information or just kind of gauging your level of comfort. But from a staff recommendation perspective, it would be to lower to the smaller insurance amounts for small contracts, maybe less than $10,000 or less than $20,000 on specific projects such as, non-building related, non-site, on-site type of contracts that would lend themselves to have high liability of injury or things like that. But also add that, the select board has delegated to me signing authority of contracts up to $50,000 per vendor per year. And, but we would defer. So generally I would be the one reviewing and signing that contract. But in the event that we would be looking to reduce the liability insurance, the select board would authorize that specific piece. And then we could, reduce to writing the rationale as to why the insurance has been, and it would go in the procurement file with that contract. That's just some ideas that we had internally. I don't know if there's a comfort level if you'd like to see some more analysis or study. The insurance amounts are still the reduced amounts that are more, you're still talking $1 million professional, and what was it, $1 million umbrella with a $2 million aggregate.
How's that number that you just gave different from the current requirements?
We're at one per incident and $3 million in the aggregate, and what's our professional is also 1 in 3, right?
Yeah.
So this would drop it down to 1 in 2,
Yeah.
and that's a material reduction in the premiums for our.
Yeah. Let me if you can scroll. Actually, if you can open, scroll to Margaret's attachment. I just so this way I'm not guessing. So general liability is 1. Yeah, all right. So our umbrella is 2 million. So it would cut the umbrella policy in half. And if you scroll down to the bottom of the bulleted, we have the professional liability insurance is 1 million per claim in 3. So we would be 1 million. And 2 million in the aggregate, which was suggested in the forum, right? That we used to source the information, and the feedback we got that was enough. That these thresholds are much more expensive than a traditional. I think that it sounded like a traditional professional liability was just $1 million flat. So we could try there. I guess it's maybe we run across a small vendor and they need some more wiggle room, but that would be up to the select board to decide, or find a happy medium where they have to up their insurance to work with us, but not to the extent of, to match the town's kind of standard requirements.
My reaction is it sounds like it makes sense, but I think we'd want to be pretty clear on when you'd go type 1 or type 2. And so that you would feel like you were in complete, confident ground when you were kind of giving guidance or making a decision. And, whatever language we put into this policy, you feel completely comfortable that you're clearly in type 1 or type 2.
Yeah, and I think that's why the select board would have, each contract would come before the board.
Unless
Right.
it's less than $50,000.
No, I'm saying even if it's less than 50.
Okay.
So like even if we had a $5,000 contract, like so if there's a $5,000 contract or a contract under $50,000, we're always gonna lead with the town standard, our standard liability requirements, right? So we're always gonna lead with that italicized text up there. That's the one that has been stated a couple times that it's just simply too high and too expensive for small businesses. In the event like this lottery where they come back and say, we'd love to do the project, but it's simply not worthwhile for us to pay the annual premium to match this insurance. It's basically equals or close to equals what the total fee is on this project. So at that point, we would come back to the select board for authorization. Nobody has the authority to change, at least in this current proposal, nobody would have the authority to change, including me, the insurance premiums other than using our standard template. If anything reduced from that, it would need individual select board approval per contract. And that's not, I don't think it's overly burdensome from administrative perspective for the board or the select board's office, because we're talking 4 or 5 years. This is just, we have one that's just recent and ongoing, and they continue to be interested in doing the project. But this is kind of what's holding us up. So the option is either go with them or go with someone. I think the next one was it 19 or 20?
Yeah, Margaret Hoffman, town planner. So we've had a few different projects that have come up like this for planning purposes. We're contracting with a organization that's going to help us create a plan, like our subdivision regulations, or this is to do the lottery for that small unit. We got this one bid for $5,000, and this was great because they'll do what we need to have done. Then we got another bid from a larger company, and theirs was into the 18 to 20,000 because they were going to include other items. There still was a little bit of issue with automobile insurances, how much they had to carry on that. And I think what they're questioning us, saying, I'm not driving for the town. In most cases, they're not even coming here. It's all done online. So there are different projects that I think require different insurances, I would imagine. If they're out doing work on a building, of course you need certain liability coverage in case someone gets hurt. But I think maybe if we could do a little more research on what kinds of insurance is really needed for these types of projects. I think we've just been telling, some of the companies come back and say, yeah, we have that already. A lot, from what I've heard, some of the federal contracts require higher insurances. So some of the larger organizations or companies that do federal contracts carry this kind of insurance. But for our purposes, we're dealing with more smaller companies. So, and I think what Steve's idea of, when we want to enter into a contract and they can't match our insurances, then we would just determine what kind of insurance really is necessary and whether what they have is sufficient for what we need. Then we would bring it to the select board for approval.
Yeah, that was just an idea. I think in general, there have always been alternatives to get the insurance level we require. It's just, you have to, pay for it. So I guess it's just, this is one that had, the discrepancy is pretty large, at like 4 times the cost. and it would be funded by the Affordable Housing Trust, which is a good cause and limited funds. So it was just kind of like, I think this is probably a good time. We've talked about having this conversation. Probably this is the fourth or fifth time.
Yeah.
So we feel, you know, why don't we bring this before the board and see if there's any appetite to consider something like this.
Gary?
Well, I think I'd be comfortable, because I think part of the problem too is, you know, Wenham's always done just we're small, we're just one size fits all, and certainly would not want to cut us out of the small business vendors, as well as I think you got to realize that perhaps if we look at what we buy has certainly changed from pick and shovel to IT stuff, so that perhaps we need to reflect in our insurance requirements the changing industry standards. But I'd certainly be comfortable, you know, on these coming on a one-time basis, each case to the select board. And I would ask one question: does Maya have any statistics that would reveal what sort of activities result in lawsuits in the past? You know, how many dump trucks versus IT installers, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good question, a fair question. I don't know the answer.
Yes,
I mean,
but-
they may be able to share some
Provide some guidance
statistics.
on that.
I know as far as like recommendation for insurance amounts, this doesn't answer your question, but they have a pretty standard answer. It's like our policy is to recommend you maintain, you know, the town's
Right.
liability insurance, and that's what that is.
Right.
And that's in all our standard contracts.
Yeah, we can look into that a little more, Gary, too.
Yeah,
with-
well, that's Maya.
with
See if
Maya.
they have any stats.
And I'll
That's
ask
good
them.
information to have.
Yeah, they may have a recommendation for smaller service contracts as opposed to construction contracts, you know.
Ben?
I agree that this makes a lot of sense for the reasons that both Gary and Finn have said. I'm wondering whether the policy would limit this discretion to lower limits, or maybe even eliminate, for example, an auto insurance policy, whether that would be limited to professional service vendors, or is it sort of potentially open to everybody? Because I could see where it might make sense to have certain categories of things that involve heavy equipment, you know, heavy vehicles, life safety issues, where we're probably never going to say that the limit should be reduced. So why even necessarily make those types of contracts eligible for this type of relief? So that, I mean, that's a thought, but I don't know whether if the policy were to say for professional service contractors or bidders or what have you, that would be the world where this discretion could have, whether that would be too limiting, whether, you know, the examples that we've heard about, the housing lottery, the logo, those obviously are both professional services and both, you know, very good examples of why this makes sense, what you're recommending. So anyway, that's just a thought, whether there's some sort of categorization that maybe would be done on the front end that would limit the number of cases that would need to be brought to the select board to decide.
It's a good point.
Yeah, that's why I was initially thinking this was a type 1 or type 2, where I would be I'm comfortable with what you're describing now, where you come to us on every single one, but if you put in more planning on this, I think we could probably come to a policy that said that if you meet these criteria, then, you know, we would happy authorize you to say, yes, this meets criteria, whatever it happens to be, which means no automotive insurance is required because they've signed something that says that they are not going to drive ever for this thing, or, you know, whatever else you say. You know, I think we could probably come to some policy that would reduce the amount of time you have to come to the select board to get special permission, and you would also be able to include that in any sort of RFP so that you could suddenly discover that some of these contracts could be cheaper than we're getting now.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. But yeah, why don't you let us take a stab at that policy that tries to carve out some, you know, kind of what ifs and limits the amount that gets before the select board, and just kind of standardizes it. Yeah, I think we can put together something like that
Yeah,
for
definitely.
the next meeting.
Put together a proposal on different tiers.
One just follow-up point. So you raised auto insurance, Margaret, which makes sense that is something that wouldn't seem to be applicable for certain contracts, certain vendors. I think my understanding is that solo practitioners or sole proprietors rather usually don't need to get workers' comp
Right.
if it's just a sole owner, at least in the professional services world. So that might be another one that would
Yeah.
be easily waivable depending on the situation.
Yeah, that was another one that came up.
Yeah.
Workman's comp. Okay,
Good.
good.
Sounds like we're all in agreement.
We'll put
And-
something together.
Yeah, good. Thank you for bringing it forward. To be continued. All righty. Okay, item C, discussion and potential vote to approve required budget transfers as authorized under General Law, Chapter 44, Section 33B, addressing year-end budget transfers for the last 2 months of the fiscal year, May and June, and the first 15 days of July of the new fiscal year, being the statutory period for closing municipal finance records for the fiscal year.
You zoom in just a little. Michelle, you zoom in just a little so I can see it. There you go. All right, so this, as what Deirdre just read, this is something that the Select Board and the FinCom do every year. The FinCom statutorily has all the authority over this, and they ultimately make the transfers, but historically in Wenham, and to maintain that tradition, the Select Board has always been a two-vote thing. So different years, like sometimes Select Board votes first, sometimes the Finance Committee votes first. Just kind of depends on how the meeting schedules fall. So this year, the Select Board, they're before the Select Board first. The Finance Committee has a meeting tomorrow night where they'll weigh in on this. I know Ernie has been working with them closely over the past week answering questions. So I think everyone's pretty much on the same page as far as what's going on. So nothing here is a surprise at this point. But I'll run through, just quickly the reasons for some of the transfers. Most of them are pretty straightforward. The first one being we just simply under budgeted by about $1,500 on our Harper's payroll contract this year. There was an increase that we didn't capture in our budgeting, so that line item ran over. And additionally, we've done a number of tax takings, and also the advertisement and auction process through the two town parcel disposals is much more activity than we do on a very minimally funded line item. So those cause those to be expended. So the combination between the two amounted to about $2,500. The next four are, really the reason why we set up the utilities reserve to begin with. So that is a pot of money that exists to backfill utility line items in this environment where energy cost has become volatile and difficult to plan with. We've planned for. We started with a large utility reserve. I don't want to quote the exact dollar amount, but we started with about $100,000 3 or 4 years ago, and that has been reduced down to a much smaller amount, maybe $15,000 or $20,000 that we've left in there that we continue to budget for each year. And last year we really didn't need it at all. This year, we do need it. So it's good that we have it. So that's what those are for. 6 and 7. So this is to backfill buildings and grounds contractual services. The reason for that is the town hall relocation. If you remember, we did not originally plan to have to vacate or clear the building to the extent we had to with the installation of the HVAC. It was supposed to be done completely occupied, which I guess it was occupied, but we had to, the temporary heat and all the construction costs were picked up through the TELP agreement and the total cost of the project. But we were forced to incur some moving costs, storage costs as we moved, all the additional IT costs as we moved from like we had to vacate the first floor, move down to the select board's unit, and then vice versa. We moved everyone upstairs so that, and then there was also some significant repairs and damage that needed to be corrected for both the fire and police station garage doors. So 8 is, you'll see there's a number of transfers that are being, or pots that are being pulled from to fund this or to offset a significantly large overrun of expenditures in police overtime. The reason for that is, as you're aware of, the 111F, which is the permanent disability from one of our police officers where he was injured on duty and is permanently disabled from being a police officer. We also had the first in a long time, or any recent history, certainly, a deployment of a military personnel over in the police station, which creates a very large overtime situation. And the police department also dealt with a number of long-term injuries that took place that were unusual for the department. It's not something that we deal with every year, but it was kind of a perfect storm last year, and there was a lot going on that created a lot of overtime requirements and the need to backfill these shifts.
If I recall correctly that the bringing on board of the 2 police officers is supposed to mitigate this as a risk going forward.
That is the plan. Yep. Let's see. So we have so number 9 is a combination of well, 2 things. Is, as the select board is aware, we are contracted with MRI to do with the to get ahead of any retirements at the fire department. We went ahead and have contracted with MRI to do an operational study to help the select board when it's ready and if needed to kind of reorganize the department and help it with its recruitment efforts and structuring the department in the most optimal way possible, given the potential for Jeff Baxter, the deputy, retired, and the possibility of the chief retiring at some time in the near future. And in addition to that cost, there was benefit costs with Jeff's retirement, where the town owed him some sick time buyback and also his vacation accrual. Excuse me.
When do you expect to get that study back?
We are probably within a couple weeks. It should be ready to distribute. The let's see, 10 and 11 is, we had a pretty crazy winter, so we were able to, we can run a deficit in snow removal if we want and fund it next year at town meeting. However, we have the funds to offset the overrun this year, so that is wise to do so. We won't have to re-raise it next year. 12 is, well, like it says, to cover a special election. That was an unanticipated cost to the town clerk's office. 13 is, this is just, it was an under budgeting on an estimation of the FICA Medicare. So that's a transfer. That's pretty common. We have, group insurance kind of serves as kind of a big chunk of money amongst the benefit line items, and we typically transfer out of that to cover any benefit shortfalls at the end of the year. So again, this is more tax title cleanup out of the finance on 14. Looks like we have second 14. Yep. All right. So town meeting was cost $25,000 this year. We increased it. A part of that is because it was at the Gordon College, the Bennett Center, because of the increase in patrol officers, for both police and fire, for additional details. So more details than we would typically have at And there is some additional setup costs in the audiovisual for Gordon College. So the toss was up to, the amount was about $25,000, but we did, for FY27, we did bump it up to $20,000. So we believe that to be closer to what we'll incur next year. This is number 16 is a transfer for utility costs from the, this is a utility cost, but it is not funded by the utility reserve. Reason being is that the library is a shared service, so we try very hard to contain all costs and not kind of commingle other budgetary funds in a shared service budget where Hamilton is ultimately billed for 2/3 of the total cost at the end of the year. And so highway refuge. So this is really ultimately it was just a under budgeted amount for the refuse collection contract as we were finalizing things. We just slightly under budgeted, so it's a large budget item for about $500,000, and we were about, as you see, 18 grand under on that. So we were able to pull it from partially utility reserve and partially highway salary. With that, that ends the transfer request.
Okay, any questions?
No questions?
I covered them during it. Thanks very much for entertaining those.
None for me. I'll make a motion.
All righty.
Move to approve required budget transfers authorized under GL Chapter 44, Section 33B, as presented, contingent upon Finance and Advisory Committee approval.
Gary seconds.
All right, we'll vote. Gary?
Yes.
Finn?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
And Deirdre, aye. All right, motion passes. And we are on to D, a discussion and potential vote to authorize the spending of the town of Wenham opioid settlement funds to pay for opioid-specific training for the town of Wenham police officers.
Can we take this?
Yep, so Joe will
Joe's-
take this one, yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. So in Massachusetts, there were several opioid settlement funds that came through from national lawsuits against opioid manufacturers, distributors, and pharmacies. These companies were accused of helping fuel the opioid epidemic, so there were settlements that were reached. So currently, the funding is a 60-40 split in Massachusetts. 60% goes to the Commonwealth through the Opioid Recovery Remediation Fund to support statewide programs. The other 40% goes directly to participating municipalities, cities and towns in Massachusetts. Wenham currently has just under $16,000 in opioid funding. And there was a request from the police chief about a month or so ago to send its officers to a training program that is in Bridgewater State University. It's to help officers learn more about overdoses and how to prevent them, how to deal with mental health troubles while on the job as well. It's a good program. It's $450. Actually, the chief thinks he can get it down to $400 with his contact, but he wants to send approximately 13 of his officers over there for the training. It is actually online. It's self-paced, about 4 hours long. And so in order to release the funding, there's 3 criteria that have to be met. The first of which is it has to be basically, there has to be a special revenue account created, and that's already been done by the assistant accountant and finance director. Second criteria is that the Commonwealth itself has to approve the training, which they've already done. I was in contact with a couple members of the state, and they said, training purposes is totally fine for opioid funding to be released. And the last is the select board, as the executive authority of the town, have the vote to release the funding. As a side note, the Board of Health met last Thursday to recommend, unanimously recommend that the funding be released for the purposes of this police training.
Great.
This is not a requirement, but just sort of a best practice that, we were advised that probably should happen. Again, it's not required. But the last step to release this funding would be for select board to vote on it tonight. Just so like I mentioned earlier, it'd be 13 officers, $400 to $450 per officer. So we're looking at like $5,200 to $5,800 total. And again, we have just south of 16,000 currently. And we might get more as well, more funding. This is the payments, as I understand it, will be going until 2038. So this is currently what we have is just about $16,000. So tonight we're just looking, the Board of Health is hoping to get a vote in the affirmative for the police training.
Sorry, just clarify that one more time. So the total that we're authorizing tonight is,
Yeah, it'd be about, depending if it's, it's between $400 to $450 per officer, so about $5,200
per
to
officer. Okay.
Yeah, total would be $5,200 to $5,800, depending on if you can get it, 400 or 450. We're hoping to get, he thinks he can get it knocked down to $400 per officer.
And just do the total. Do the higher amount, just in case.
Like 6,000.
6,000, yeah,
threshold.
that probably, just to be safe, yeah.
All right, appreciate hearing from the Board of Health.
Mm-hmm.
We are part of a public health consortium, and
Yes,
I think this is one of the topics that gets discussed is pooling and use of the opioid funds.
yes, correct. This
So-
should be the first use, I believe, from the town, using
Good.
these funds, I believe, yeah.
But it's unanimous from the Board of Health,
Yes,
so
it
that's
is.
great.
Yep.
Okay, excellent. Sounds like a good program. Questions on this?
I'd agree. I'd be interested in hearing about, I agree with this specific use, and the remaining, say, $10,000. It'd be interesting to hear what kind of alternative, uses we could actually get from that. I mean, having first responders trained, I don't know if it's materials or Narcan or, whatever else ideas we have. I'd be
Sure.
if that's going to be Board of Health is looking into
Yeah.
those uses, or who's charged with trying to figure that out.
Yeah, there is a list of allowable uses. I will say, I don't have it in front of me, but I think one is student awareness, through education. Some
Public
of it-
education?
Yes, and some of it is actually Narcan as well, and, materials that can help in that situation. But there is a list that the state has, and again, training is one of them, but there's like maybe 8 to 10 uses you can have for this.
And in general, the other communities, boards of health have kind of led the charge as far as making the recommendation for appropriate uses. So we'll connect with ours, and
Yeah.
Great.
I'm pretty sure Dr. Ting seems to follow this pretty closely. So
Right, and they discuss it at the consortium meetings as well.
Great, thank you.
All right, can we get a motion?
I can do this one then.
Okay.
All right, move to authorize the spending of Town of Wenham opioid settlement funds in the amount not to exceed $6,000 to pay for the opioid-specific training for the Town of Wenham police officers.
Second.
All right, we'll take a vote. Ben?
Aye.
Finn?
Finn, aye.
Gary?
Yes.
And Deirdre, yes. Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Joe, for that. Appreciate it. Okay, item E, vote to sign the proclamation as part of Wenham's designation as a Purple Heart community to acknowledge the town hall flag raising and the flying of the Purple Heart flag through August 7th.
Yep. So this Bill Wilson is here with us tonight. That he's going to kind of go over it, but I think it's short. That it's part of, if you remember, I believe it was 2 or 3 meeting cycles
Yes.
ago. The board was approached and asked for permission to submit an application on their behalf for Wenham to become a Purple Heart community, and and to honor our Purple Heart veterans that we have here in the community. And as part of that, the board will need to make a proclamation to that effect. In addition to this is the flying of the Purple Heart flag until August 2nd. The select board has a flag raising policy for raising flags on town hall land, and one of the exemptions to that, meaning that it's an allowable use for the flagpole, is for military uses like this. But we figure it'd be best where we do have a policy. The select board just acknowledges that the Purple Heart will be flown on town hall property through whatever the August 7th.
Excuse me. Bill, would you like to add comments to that?
No, I think you've accurately described it. We did meet on this on the 14th of April, and the select board voted unanimously to approve this. So tonight is, I'm not sure if Dean's there on the floor. Dean?
No, he's not here.
He's not there, okay. Yeah, so tonight would just be the signing of the proclamation and to set a time of Friday, the 31st of July, 9:30 in the morning for flag raising.
Okay. All right, this is great that this is happening. Anybody have questions for Bill before we vote?
I just have a question, Bill. So this would, the flag would fly from July 31st through August 7th, as I understand it, under this proposal. Do you know whether the intention would be that roughly those dates would be the same dates each year, that there would be a flag raising specifically for the Purple Heart flag, and then it would fly for a week?
Yeah, it's an annual thing as a, of our community. That's one of the things we're signing up to doing.
Yeah.
Doing it once a year at this time, and coordinate with Gloucester as well. We're doing this year. We're kind of they're doing it after we do ours there. So yeah, it's an annual event, to get back to your question.
Great, thank you.
Anybody else? All right, can we have
Motion?
a motion?
All right, so move to approve the signing of the proclamation designated Wenham as a Purple Heart community, and to also authorize the flying of the Purple Heart flag beginning at ceremony at 9:30 on the 31st of July through August 7th.
Second.
Excellent. Move to vote. Gary?
Yes.
Finn?
Finn, aye.
Ben?
Ben, aye.
And Deirdre, aye. Thank you very much, Bill.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. We'll look forward to the ceremony and seeing the
Okay.
flag flying.
Hope you all can attend.
I hope we can. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, we are at item F, discussion and potential vote to approve the Community Preservation Committee's request to place a funded by Community Preservation Act dollars sign on the Civil War Memorial restoration project across from Town Hall on town-owned land. I'm not sure that part's
Yeah.
correct,
Yeah,
actually.
Gary, and you correctly pointed out that it is not town-owned.
Not town-owned land.
It's owned by the church.
Yes.
However, the town manages the memorial and the maintenance of the property.
Correct, okay.
So, the motion could be amended to reflect that, or maybe to also request, maybe a dual authorization is needed here, given that the town kind of manages the landscape and the memorial itself, and the church owns the land. That both would need to be in agreement, which I can coordinate the church part if the select board wants to authorize me to do so. Given, and assuming the select board is okay with this signage going up. This would set a precedent because although the CPC has put a plaque up on the Enon 1, I wasn't part of that, or I didn't catch that when it was being done. But there's a plaque up on there, but there is going to be, generally there, in recent times, the most recent round, they're starting to request that the inclusion of a clause in a grant agreement to other folks that are not the town that are receiving CPC funds, that they allow them to display some sort of signage or placard that advertises that, this project was made possible by your CPC dollars. Similarly, that question is going to come to put it on the front lawn at Town Hall when we do the roof, because that would be funded by CPC dollars. They did not make the request for the HVAC, which was partially funded. But this is kind of a new initiative that they're taking up in the most recent round of grant funding, so that the board can anticipate that request. Just understanding that, the decision here may set some sort of expectation or precedent if that changes anything.
Yeah,
I think Madam Chair, the thing that I was thinking about here was, permanent versus temporary. I'm not sure that we want to become a town of billboards, but they certainly do spend a lot of money, like it's our money, our money on these things that we all see great value in. I don't see any problem with acknowledging that, but while they're doing the work on say the town hall, I think it makes sense. The question is, how many more signs, for the roof, the HVAC, for the landscaping, for the windows, for the, a separate sign on each one of those is going to get kind of ridiculous. So I think it's just something we probably want to consider.
So I think I would be a no on this particular case. I think that I recognize the need for the CPC to showcase where the funds are spent, and that counters any questions about the added taxes. But I would say that, one, that the sign should be temporary in nature, and more specifically this case, I think there are some places in town that just advertising is not appropriate. And I'd put that in the case of a cemetery, the case of the War Memorial, in case of the Civil War Memorial, that those are places that yes, we know you contributed to it, but I don't think that's a place for advertisement. There's other venues that could highlight the committee's achievements other than those kind of sacred places.
Interesting.
I agree with that. I think, my initial thought was that I would, at minimum, want to see what the sign looks like, aesthetically, size-wise. If anything were to go next to the Civil War Memorial, that we would definitely want to know what it looked like. But I agree with what you said, Gary. I think that particular location and the others that you mentioned, I think, aren't really, I would agree, appropriate for that type of advertisement. And I think that while it's true that CPC dollars, were approved for the restoration project, and everyone is grateful for that, and it's everyone's tax dollars, so it's, they're grateful that someone took the time to seek to channel everyone's tax dollars to that particular project. It could also be a little bit misleading in the sense that, okay, what was the entire installation of the monument a CPC thing, which isn't the case. I agree with Gary that, at least for this particular location, that I wouldn't support the sign, and, it's probably invites a broader discussion as to whether there are certain other locations where CPC funds were deployed where a sign might be appropriate.
Okay, I guess I'm more in favor of it than the three of you. Mainly, I think to me it's not so much about crediting the committee, but it's about crediting what these funds are and what they do for the community, which is from the taxpayers essentially, and to sort of showcase that work throughout the town. However, I agree that the plaque, I was envisioning more of like a brass plaque that's discrete, not billboards, as you're saying, and certainly not multiple on the same property. I think that would become excessive. And I do appreciate what you're saying about the War Memorial, but I guess in my mind, I was picturing something small and discreet that you see when you're up close, not driving down 1A. So, maybe we could ask for some additional clarification or bring the comments from the board back to CPC to consider whether there should be some tiering of it, because I do think it should be in the contract if this is what we want to do going forward, so that people understand. Other donors require it, like AARP, if you get their grant money, you need to put a sign. But should some signs be temporary while the work is being done? I think in all cases they should be discreet. What would they actually look like? I thought I saw a sign on the garden, actually,
Yes.
which was relatively large.
That's my understanding from my conversation with Tom, is that it's not a permanent placard in this case. They would like to put one of the, like a big, almost like a political sign, right?
Yeah, and if it was permanent, I think that would, if you're in the historic district, that might create potentially.
Right, and actually, that brings up a good point. I wonder if the historic district needs to weigh in on that sign.
So is the request for a temporary sign? That's not sort of how I read it.
Well, I mean, the request was not I mean, I guess I assumed it would be temporary, but the request was not it was from the committee through Tom Dolly, who was their admin coordinator. And the request was just simply they want to put a sign up there, like the one at the garden, can they? And so I said, well, I can't answer that, but the select board, probably can, and, probably would make sense if the board's looking to go that direction, the church as well. But given this one's a little different because in the sense that the grant agreement on, say, the museum, in theory, the grant agreement will say, once we sign it, that they have to display that, a sign, a temporary sign out there that says this is, your CPC dollars at work, or it's, I don't, but with the town, you're not granting, the appropriation was made at town meeting for a town project. So it's not a grant, it's an appropriation. So that's the difference, is a grant is not a town project, and, I think most importantly, doesn't have to follow procurement law, which is a big differentiator in the project. And that's why we want to grant the money and not be part of the project for entities that are not part of the town. But in a town project specifically, we do have to follow procurement law, and this is an appropriation, and in this case, we have to follow procurement law and prevailing wage where appropriate, which we did so in this project.
But I
Since we're
guess
managing the project, even
in
though it's
all-
on the church's land.
Sorry.
No, sorry.
I was just going to say, in all cases, I think we would want the signage to be discreet and a little bit less visible from a far distance.
Yeah, and I think that is certainly, right, so the CPC's involvement in these projects, Lauren has been very clear with this, is that once their process, their involvement in this really ends at town meeting's recommendation. So they make that recommendation at town meeting, and in our case, historically, they do the motion, which isn't required, but they make the motion, meaning someone from the committee. But then once the funds are appropriated, or the authority to grant the funds are given by the townspeople, the attendees of the town meeting, it's now select board. It's a select board project, for lack of a better word. It's your initiative. You grant the money on behalf of the town. The authorization to grant that money was given to you at town meeting. It's your grant document. It's your grant agreement. If you remember, the CPC petitioned the select board, and they started actually including some in the wording in their motions, was that, only that the motion included that the select board, I forget what was the term,
Keep them appraised.
keep them appraised. Yeah, there was a kind of a little fight about how that wording was going to go, to keep them appraised of the process. So, in Lauren's opinion, that the agreement to include that in the motion was non-committal on the select board's part as to, giving them any authority over the process, other than the fact that we just have to inform them that we're writing the grant, and they submit their comments. And I think one of those comments is going to be the inclusion of these signs. But it's totally within the select board's authority to be like, we don't want signs at all, or we want signs, but we want them to look like this, or you know what I mean? It's not really a CPC thing at this point. This is their request.
I think that the topics that the Madam Chairperson has talked about we need to address, one of them is, while something is being done, clearly being done, a roof or HVAC, to have a temporary sign that's very visible to people driving by, your tax dollars, you did this is how we funded it, this is when it's going to be, when it's going to be completed, that sort of stuff, I would be, that's one aspect of this. So the more permanent signage, if CPC funds a particular thing and it's going to be there for an extended period of time, but they're not going to be continuing to fund it all, the entire time. That's kind of a different situation where you might need to be more discreet. So both the type of signage and the permanent or temporary nature, I think we need to kind of have addressed. And then this second kind of split of granting versus ownership, I think we'd have to understand that. That's a little unclear to me yet still. So those are the three aspects that I think I'd want to understand a little more before I could come to an opinion on it.
Yeah, so can we ask them to sort of rethink it a bit?
Yeah, well, why don't I do this? I think I've heard, a general sense of where the board's at least for the most part. I will take a stab at a policy for next time that covers CPC signage. And then maybe after that, the select board, if it wants to, ask the CPC to take a look. Because I feel like it would probably make sense for the select board to have some sort of document with your preferences and then maybe have them comment.
I see.
Right? Or, I mean, certainly up to you. If you
I would
think
agree with
I'm
that,
right.
yes, that, it should originate from select board / town administrator.
I agree. I mean, that's sort of consistent with the other policy language about keeping them apprised. This would be keeping the CPC apprised of the select board's views on what maybe isn't appropriate as a condition in a grant agreement.
That's the fourth one, was the, war memorials and cemeteries versus other sort of things would probably be a fourth category for us to be clear on.
And I can spend as much time as you want. The one piece that I probably did a bad job explaining is the difference between a grant and a town project. And it's really no more than is the town doing the project, or is some other private entity, external party doing the project. And that's, if it's external, like the tea house or the museum or the church, or whoever else has received CPC grant funds in the past, that would be a grant, because we don't want to make it a town project. We don't want to be the oversight authority, because then that triggers procurement law. If we run the project like this one, like we're actually, we're just funding ourselves basically, because our facilities manager and Kate Mallory, land use director, have worked together in making this happen. So it's all our effort. We've managed it, we've procured it, we've done everything. Where, if it was the museum, we write the grant document that says, all the requirements that they have to fulfill, and some clawback clauses if they don't do the project that they promise to give. But so once the select board signs that and they sign it, we just send them the money. It's, here, we've granted you the money, here you go do the project. But, the grant agreement is kind of the contract that outlines what they have to do to fulfill their end of the bargain to get this money.
So if I understand you right, I guess there's two ways of interpreting what you just said. One of them is that we, in those cases, whatever policy we have internally is completely not applicable, and whatever they're deciding to do with the CPC money and signage is up to them, as opposed to, as part of the grant language, we would say, and here is the guidance on what we want you to do for signage. Those are the two ways that this could go.
Yeah, because with the grant, I think it could go a couple different ways. The way you propose it, and we put that in the contract, but it's also, the contract, the grant is, what they want to have is a clause that requires the receiver to have signage up. So, we could either, say, even if we said no signage, I'm not sure, as long as it doesn't, go against any existing signage bylaws or anything, or the historic district, that they probably could put signage up anyways if they wanted to advertise how they got the money to do it. But the select board could certainly, in the clause that requires them to put signage, can require, time, look, aesthetics, all that type of stuff the select board could do. It's whether it's permanent or not.
All right, so you're going to take a stab at drafting something,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll come back to this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good?
Sounds good to me. Thank you
All
very
righty.
much.
Okay, item G, initial discussion on FY27 financial-related goals and initiatives, and how the board would like to prioritize balancing internal capacity and time constraints for FY27. Steve?
Yep, thank you. So Michelle, I'll start introducing this topic, but I sent you an email about 6:30. Can you open that document and just scroll to the last page, please? So this, I thought it would be good. So right now, the way, I'm looking at the summer, is I'm trying to be ready for our August meeting, if it's still the desire of the board to have one meeting in August, to kind of go over the recap, our goals and objectives that we set last fall as a group. So kind of where we are, what we've accomplished, what we didn't accomplish. And, and part of that is also be bringing up, I don't think the select board, we won't be, this meeting will continue in some forum into September as we work through and establish what our goals and priorities are going to be for the upcoming year. So I've kind of, in my weird way of organizing my lists and stuff on my desk, I've started to jot down ideas and things that we didn't get to, that we said we were going to try to get to last year, and then also things that have come on my radar. Use Word to open it. I don't know why it's saved as that. And what's become clear is that go to the last page. Oh, I didn't save it. All right, you know what? Never mind. We don't have to. I'll send it out, and I can go just off the top of my head. So what's become clear is that there's going to be a lot of finance-related work this year that needs to be prioritized, because I think it's greater than we're ever going to be able to get to in a year's time. On top of that, the Finance Committee has raised concerns a number of times about, feeling not included or feeling like they get the information at the 11th hour and are forced to make a decision. So I think that they also have some priorities that they feel like the town should be working on. We have a very, pretty finite financial staff in town that has their daily operational duties in accounting and payroll and AP and all that stuff. And also part of Ernie's job is to help staff and support the Finance Committee and help them in their in the town's analyses, but also help make sure they get the information they need and help them through the analyses. So I think it's going to make some sense, and something I'd like to ask the board if they would like to consider maybe inviting the Finance Committee in. And I have a pretty comprehensive list that I can email you to you that I was working on up to the last minute right before the meeting, but clearly I didn't save the right copy. So, but I can send it to you. And I think they also have some additional concerns. But I feel like in this situation, like where they're kind of feeling not heard, that we kind of bring everyone together and help come up with a prioritized list of, where we're going to go. Like there's a couple large projects there, like, we've had some significant turnover in the fire department. So are we keeping the ambulance or are we not? Right? That's going to be a pretty deep dive. We've talked about regionalization efforts and public safety. That's going to be a pretty big project. We've talked about moving from the Maya to the GIC insurance. That's going to be a huge project. We're publishing for the first time our budget document this year in August, but so I'm anticipating, and we've got some feedback about maybe trying to build out the narratives and some performance metrics by department, which is all a good idea, but it's also laborious. Benchmarking ourselves against different communities in our service delivery costs on a per capita basis, or maybe gross amounts based on community type or similar budget sizes, and just look at where we are in that and kind of analyze what that data is telling us. And there's a number of other projects on there, but it's just, these are big projects that are going to require a lot of staff in an environment where, you know, Belinda is retiring in December. We have a strong internal candidate, you know, who's a complete rock star, I think, and, you know, will likely end up in that position, but that creates basically a 2-seat shift that we're going to be hiring for and kind of helping them get up to speed, on top of having a finance director who's doing a great job, you know, but also is very new to the town and also very new to municipal government. So there's just a really lot going on in there, and I think it would help that, you know, the finance committee to be understanding and heard, if they can work with the select board and understand your priorities and you understand their priorities, as we kind of move forward through this year and into the budget cycle, which, you know, is basically a couple months away when you think about it.
So I'm perfectly happy to have the finance committee in to meet with us jointly. I think that's a great idea and a good precedent. I guess my only concern is in segmenting sort of the financial projects, there's still ripple effects to everything else, all the other goals and objectives, because in large part, you know, your time is also finite, and I imagine is going to be consumed by the financial projects as well. So I guess it's more of a chicken and egg question, is should we have the larger discussion and then meet with the FinCom to narrow it to the financial priorities? Because they impact each other, right? Because you're a finite resource.
That's fair. And I have my own priorities as well. I mean, if I was to look at the list of finance stuff, you know, I have some rationale of things that should bubble up to the top.
Right, so when we discuss the list, it would be inclusive, right, of what you see, what FinCom requests, and sort of what's emerged.
Yeah, I mean, and I've tried to capture what FinCom I've heard in the meetings, because I've been to a number of, quite a few since Jeff has left. You know, but I'm not sure I've captured them all. I know Sarah has ideas, Bob has a lot of ideas. You know, I think it'd be worth hearing from them and getting to a, you know, or at least agree to understand each other.
I think it would make sense, at least from efficiency point of view, to have us all here in the same room rather than having one meeting and then another meeting, them having a meeting and then us all having a combined meeting. I think we could just have one group discussion on it. I think would make sense. I have plenty of thoughts on all the ones you've listed, but I won't go into them here so that we can have that meeting then instead of now. So.
Sorry, can I just
add
one thing? Just, you may know this, but in case you don't, so typically we do have a goal-setting workshop for the select board in the summer at some point, so that encompasses all of sort of the goals and objectives for the coming years, particularly for the town administrator, but also the rest of the staff to be focused on. So my point is that those two things we need to make sure we're looking at the big picture. Do you know what I mean? And not just carving out and discussing the financial aspects, but that's the part that's relevant to FinCom. So it's sort of an order of operations thinking.
Okay.
Just to make sure you're clear on all that. Who was next?
So perhaps what you're saying is 2 meetings in one, so that, you know, the meeting starts off, we take a look at the big picture of roads and everything else, including finance, and then we take part of the meeting to sit down specifically with FinCom to see their concerns and goals and objectives too.
I don't really have anything to add.
Okay.
So, thanks.
Better start at 6.
Yeah, I know, that could be a long meeting.
Yeah, I mean, well, in the spirit of joint meetings, let me just, do we agree to have them in next meeting, or we're going to have an interim meeting?
Well, where are you, I guess, with sort of the larger list of goals and objectives?
Well, my internal timeline has been to have the kind of the big usually every year, well, it hasn't really been going on that long, but the last couple of years, we've kind of landed on a process, and we've been building off of that each year. And what seemed to work well was to deliver a kind of a grand recap on everything and our successes and failures, or or inability to get to, if you want to phrase it, and then in the meeting or 2 meetings following that, although I think we drug it out until like December last year, trying to figure out exactly what we were going to identify, what we were going to actually vote on to be our goals and objectives. But basically, I'm thinking August, make the delivery of where we're at based on last year. That's gonna highlight things that are gonna be pushed forward to this year, right? Because if they were a priority last year, I'm assuming they're gonna continue to be a priority till they're completed. And then, any other ideas that the select board has that will work for additional goals and objectives, and, also my own ideas that I'll share with you in the both meetings of September with trying to finalize the town administrator's goals and objectives for the end by the last meeting in September. And my review process, would start, because it kind of all ties together. Once I give the overview in August, that would kind of complete the final grading criteria on my review, so that the select board could start that then. And then we'd be kind of setting the new goals and objectives for the year for FY27 that would be on my review process done in summer in a year from now.
So your preference would be to have the financial discussion sooner?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure I have a preference.
Okay.
I want my preference really is I kind of feel like what you're saying makes a lot of sense. And this is kind of the chicken before the egg, or the cart before the horse. And like we're kind of, maybe we should look at the big picture before we go into one subcategory of all our goals and objectives. But what I also am concerned about is just the timing and how close we are to the budget season, which, up until December, it's not super busy. But once middle of December comes, it's up through town meeting, getting the warrant ready and the warrant articles, because there's a lot of financial articles in any town meeting, but that's, so the budget is really just a small part of that. But that's pretty much all encompassing for most, staff's capacity to get ready for that April town meeting once December comes. So you have that, now we have August, to the extent, we get a lot done during the summer with the vacations, but you have August, September, October, November. Right, to the extent the FinCom has some high priorities that align with the select board's priorities that they want to have done, which I know for a fact is this financial model that Bob wants to have, and I think have done for future expenditures, which I think makes some sense, and it ties into one of my larger priorities is to have the FinCom review our free cash balance and come up with or maybe a recommendation for free cash usage before we go into the budget cycle, instead of late in the budget cycle, because there's going to be a couple of things going on this year. We're going to have an inflated free cash number this year because we have collected about $700,000 in back taxes that are going to be reflected in the free cash balance. There's been a lot of discussion about what to do with that. Do we give it back to the taxpayer as a one-time rate offset? It's like, how do we acknowledge we've received that? Like, what are we going to do with that $700,000? And then there's always a lot of discussion with the FinCom and then the select board at the 11th hour about, I feel like we're just spending money. The messaging, last 2 years from FinCom has been like, I feel like we're we have the money for it, so we're spending it. Like, we've established we're spending a capital spend of $800,000 because we have $800,000 to spend, or we're putting $250,000 into the ambulance and $250,000 into the building stabilization fund because we have extra free cash that we're looking for places to put the money. So, okay, we hear you, but let's maybe do the analysis and the work before we get to the warrant hearing or one of the final budget meetings, and we're finalizing town meeting, so that we know going in, like, all right, we know going into the budget cycle how we're going to disperse the the free cash, and part of that is, we're building our capital expenditure for the year. So, what's the appropriate spend? And I think that's where it kind of ties into the financial modeling, because, and really this is like, I don't know how long we want to stay here, but this goes into the financial policies, which all tie into, what is, we've cited industry best practices for, the reoccurring free cash and as a percentage of revenues and what it should be. But again, these are kind of industry standards, and part of it's community specific. So we've never, we've had the draft financial policies have been with the FinCom for 2 years. There's been turnover, so I understand like they've never gone through. But a big part of that is to really look at it and be like, all right, well, for a Wenham, a capital spend of 1% of our budget, we feel is suitable, and we can, and that's what we should target every year. And, our free cash regeneration of 2.5% instead of the 4%, because, we're going to spend 1% on capital. We need 0.25% on kind of discretionary needs on old bills and things that pop up inevitably every year. So we hear there's a lot of comments about we have too much free cash, we have to draw it down. Like, I don't necessarily believe that that's the case, but there is a sentiment out there that we hear that. So it's like, these are all the things, like if you would ask me my priorities, like before we get to any of, even like the insurance and all that, we can start on the back burner, but I feel like we need to get our ducks in a row on that stuff first and then work. But I know I could go on forever on this.
I think I'm going to stop you there.
Sorry.
Clearly your head is in this. I think I'll give you a chance in a second. But what it sounds like is that we should have a joint discussion to make sure that we have a thorough list from you, from FinCom, from whatever else is bubbled up, from wherever else, and at least sort of frame the list so that we can then take that forward into the overall prioritization exercise. Sound good?
Well said. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments?
I do not. I'm on board with both the expanded version and the summarized version. Both very helpful.
Oh, Steve, you crack me up.
Both passionate and knowledgeable.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Okay. All right, so we clear on the way forward.
Who said? Oh, yeah.
Oh, gosh.
I don't know if that's a.
Getting public comments?
I think it was a compliment, but I'm not sure.
Joe found a meme or something. That's the scenario. Yeah.
No, I can say what it is. It's funny. I think Roger would appreciate it as well, but I sound like Roger when he gets talking about town meeting.
Yes, exactly. Oh, that is very true. We are clear on your knowledge base, Steve. It's extensive, but you're losing us. Okay. So let's go to the last item that we'll revisit that topic at an upcoming meeting, something to look forward to. The last thing this evening is an update on the remaining vacancies on boards and committees following all of the recent appointments and reappointments. So I actually thought this list looked very good overall. There's not a huge amount of openings except in a couple of places. I don't know if we can do this without a vote, but I mentioned previously, I think I would like to try to move forward with reducing the number of seats on the Cultural Council, and maybe we need to agenda it specifically. Basically for the board to agree to approach Hamilton to look at reducing the number of seats. So what I mentioned previously is that we are two small towns and we are at the maximum number of seats, which I think is 11 per town, 22 total, which is an enormous committee, and we always have vacancies. I think we're not right-sized with the number of seats for the size of the communities. We're not a city. We're not large towns. I think we could easily come down to where we typically fill seats at, whether it's 7 or 8 or somewhere in there. But would we need to bring that formally at a next meeting to discuss and vote to approach Hamilton?
I don't think, if there's a general sense
Or
that.
just consensus?
If you guys, if the general sense is that you're supportive of the exploration of that idea, I can certainly just reach out to Joe and have, a response, whether maybe he wants to ask his board a similar, he'll maybe
Because
need
at this
some
point,
time.
it's an exploration,
Yeah.
it's not conclusive. What do people think?
Yeah, I'd agree with just have the conversation, see where their heads are at, and come back.
I agree with
Does
that.
Hamilton have vacancies on the cultural council?
I
team?
don't know
We
the
can just
answer to
check that, because I'd say 22 is huge.
I would expect, yes, but I don't know.
For a committee
for
that
a
just hands
fact.
out money.
That is a
it'd be
lot of-
easier.
Yeah, and I think only a certain time of year,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's a predictable committee. I mean, it's a great committee, I just think we're not at the right size for the towns that we are. That was my main comment on this list. We definitely, need some volunteers for the Human Rights Committee. So maybe we can do some advertising, and we definitely need 2 more people for the FinCom. We would like to have a full board there.
If you have 2 more people, that's a lot more requests for additional data. But yeah, that's a pretty dangerous level.
It's a lot of work for 3 people.
Somebody has to drop off, you're gonna have.
It is, yeah, we're running into that. The quorum thing is real.
Yep.
There's a lot of busy folks on that board.
Also, we need to reach out zoning board of appeals, especially if we get some big construction programs going in town. That
Actually, yeah, that's a great point, Gary. We just had some issues with getting
quorum.
ZBA quorums for Gordon College's music center, and they were not thrilled.
So are there 3 regular members of the ZBA in place and 1 associate/alternate? Is that the?
No, it's 3 and 2, right? 3 with 2 alternates.
Oh, so we have no alternates right now. We just have the
Right.
3 regular
Yeah.
members
Yes.
There
I
is
see.
one person that is interested.
in becoming an alternate or associate. Yeah. Okay.
Good.
So that would give us a total of 4, which would you need 2 for quorum because there's 3 that would be sitting on a particular application. Sounds like the Gordon College situation must have been with only 1 person came.
One person that wasn't, or they were,
That would happen. Or Margaret and Kay were saying they were pretty PO'd.
Yeah. I have a question about the Human Rights Committee. Do we know whether Hamilton has one?
They do.
Okay. And am I right that the Pride Picnic is sort of the main public event that both town human rights committees run?
I
Or
would
is there a
say
different
it's
organization?
the flag raising. The picnic is actually the Human Rights Coalition, which is
Private.
the non-governmental.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I was wondering whether the Human Rights Committee might be one that would be well-served by a regional committee. I only say that. I'd say that, one, for efficiency's sake and the fact that there are 4 openings, and also because I think it might raise the profile of the Human Rights Committee if you had a sort of a 2-town committee that was working together and moving forward those issues for both towns. But I'd certainly be curious not only what my colleagues here think about that, but also members of our Human Rights Committee and whether Hamilton would think that was a sensible thing to do.
And we haven't had this many vacancies for a long period of time. Some of this is the turnover. We had members who have been on for quite a while who have now rotated off, basically. So we're sort of at a transition point. So I think before we move to regionalize, I'd like to see if we are able to refill personally. But
Yep.
all right. Any other thoughts?
Are we advertising for the students in the high school starting in September?
It's a good question.
We haven't advertised, but we can do that.
Yeah, I think that's a great opportunity
I'm
for
sure we
students.
get
But
great support from Eric
Yes,
on those
true.
positions.
yeah, or maybe even teacher nominations would be great.
I wonder if there's any other things like that that would allow us to have more engagement with the high school kids. these sort of committees. You know, I think that kids are always looking for that sort of experience, especially as they're looking at colleges, right? And so where else might they?
Well, we have students on the Human Rights Committee, right? And on the Climate Action. We might look at cultural.
I mean, I actually think open space and rec would be a great
Yes,
one,
yeah.
given all of the topics that we're looking at right now. Yeah, what would it take? I guess it would be board and committee specific if we were to add a seat or transition a seat.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I mean, unless they're governed by bylaws, the makeup, I think most of these up there, at least not maybe most, but probably half of them, the select board has the ability to set the charge and change the makeup. You know, finance committee, I think, is by bylaw. Zoning Board of Appeals, I'm guessing, is a bylaw. Climate Action, the select board can do
You
it.
said, yeah.
Cultural Council, I believe you guys can do it. HDC is likely statutory or bylaw, the makeup.
I think the remaining seat has to be, I believe, part of WISH or a WISH member. I can confirm that.
And
That's
hu-
Kirsten Alexander. which-
Human Rights is select board. WISH is select board.
Human Rights already has a student seat.
We say as far as like the right, the ability to
Oh, the
change the
ability to
charge
change
and
it,
the
okay.
makeup of the community.
Got it.
Yeah, the committee, excuse me.
Okay.
That's
All right, I think that's it. Any requests for agenda items in the near future? And the next meeting is 2 weeks from now,
We did have
21st.
we did the interview panel. We had interviews for the full-time firefighter position. We did recommend someone, so that'll be on the agenda for, if you're okay with it, for the 21st.
The 21st?
Yeah.
Great.
And I'll attend. Anybody else for the, represent the board at the Eagle Court of Honor? Is what, the 17th?
Yes, I will be there for sure.
Do you know what time that is?
7 o'clock, I think it is.
7 o'clock. You should have an invite also,
Yeah.
Take a look.
electronic invite.
I'm not able to go, sadly. I've got tickets to something that starts at 7.
It's a good reason.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a great event, the Court of Honor. I enjoy them. I'm looking forward to this one particularly. Okay, any other reminders? If not, Peter's not here, so somebody do the honors.
Gotta look at the clock, huh? I move that we adjourn the select board meeting at 8:33 PM.
I will second that.
All right, Gary,
Yes?
Finn,
Aye.
Ben,
Yes,
and Deirdre, yes. Thank you, everyone, and good evening.
thank you.
Evening.